we go. Numbers chapter 10. For real this time. And we're in verse 11. Since we already covered it a couple of days ago. And it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month, in the second year, the cloud was taken up above the tabernacle. Children of Israel set out from the wilderness of Sinai on their journeys, and the clouds settled down in the wilderness of Paran. So they started out for the first time, according to the command of the Lord, by the hand of Moses. So we talked about how the cloud would go up, and then they'd pack up and they'd go, whether for days, months, or years. And a few days ago, because we were out of order, we talked about the trumpets blowing and signifying who would leave when. And so it says, standard of Judah sent out first, right? And then came Issachar and Zebulun. Then the tabernacle was taken down, verse 17. And the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari set out carrying the tabernacle. Then Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, in that order. They're from the south. And then the Kohathites set out carrying the holy things. The tabernacle would be prepared for their arrival. You have to think now, this is like multi-million people. So, because there was 600 or so thousand fighting men. So that's 600,000 fighting men. Now you have to consider how many men there are that are not fighting men. Then you have to think about how many children there are, women and children, So there's a lot of people. So by the time everybody got up and got going, you have, again, you're putting the tabernacle pieces in between groups of people to keep it safe. So the people on the east side of the camp, Judah leading them, again, that's Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, they march out. Then the tabernacle itself, because the Kohathites would have the inside stuff. So like the ark and the candlestick and the table of showbread and the table of incense. And they'd also have, I think, the bronze laver and the altar of sacrifice, that stuff. So the idea is that they take down the stuff around those things, pack them up on the wagons, because only those guys got wagons, and set them off. And then you have the other things sitting there waiting. They pick up and carry the ark and those things from behind. And then would set off Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. Then the standard of Dan, the rear guard of all the camps, along with 26 and 7, Asher and Naphtali. Now, again, we skim-read through here, and I conveniently, that's what I'm looking for, I conveniently have highlighted all the key pieces, so I can quickly skim this chapter really fast and see the names in order. And it says, thus was the order of march of the children of Israel according to their armies when they began their journey. So there's the order they go in and how they all pack up. It reminds me again of 1 Corinthians 14, let all things be done decently and in order. And God does. He has a very set order on how to do things. And it's just a great reminder, that the Bible doesn't have a whole lot of let's do this how we feel. No, God gives commands. He lays out order. He lays out clear instruction for us, right? And so there you go. Now, Moses said to Hobab, the son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are setting out for the place which the Lord said, I will give to you. Come with us and we will treat you well. So he's talking to his father-in-law. Remember, it's Reuel, but his name is, my brain is not working really quick. Jethro. There we go. So Jethro, but he also goes by Reuel, his father-in-law. So he says, we're setting out, come with us and we'll treat you well. Verse 29, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel. And he said, I will not go, but I'll depart my own land and to my relatives. So Moses says, please do not leave. And as you know how we are to camp in the wilderness, and you can be our eyes. And it shall be, if you go with us, indeed it shall be, that whatever good the Lord will do to us, the same will do to you. So they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days, And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for the 3-day journey to search out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was above them by day, and they went out from the camp. And so it was, whenever the ark set out, that Moses said, Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and those who hate you flee before you. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel. Now, this just brings up a side story. I had a friend recently ask me to give insight to Psalm 68. And so if I flip on over to this book of Psalms, there's Jeremiah, that's a little too far. Psalm 68. I want to say the commentator Adam Clarke, who is a very respected and popular commentator on the Bible, he called Psalm 68 like the most, I forget his exact words, but it's, the most confusing of all the Psalms. And it's a Psalm of David. And it's in there that Paul will quote, let's see here, is it 18? Go back up. Yeah. Oh, no, that's a different place. Who daily loads us with gifts. Verse 8. No, it is 18. I was looking at 19. I have 19 highlighted. You have ascended on high. You've led captivity captive. You received gifts from men among the rebellious, that the Lord might dwell there. So the thing with this is it seems like David is explaining how the ark got to Jerusalem. And one of the key ways we know that, because if you read this, it's kind of like, well, what is being talked about here? But the very first line of the psalm, King David says, let God arise, let his enemies be scattered, let those who hate him flee before him. He's quoting Moses here. Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, let those who hate you flee before you. And so Moses spoke those words. It says, whenever the ark went out. This is a great example of, last night at youth, we talked about rightly dividing the word of truth. And we were just talking about how does one do that? And what does that even mean? And we finally got around to saying, well, it's about keeping the Bible in context. And it's using context to help us interpret the Bible. And so a psalm that by itself might be confusing. Like, what is it talking about here? What is, and there's all these, it's like allusions, it's hinting at stuff. But where's our starting point? The starting point is verse 1, and it's recognizing that David was quoting word for word what Moses would speak every time the ark was taken up. And so it's these kinds of connections that help us understand our Bibles, because now we actually understand, oh God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, the earth shook. And so David looks backwards at the ark coming out of Sinai, but then eventually, in verses Psalm 68, 15, 16, the mountain of God is the mountain of Bashan. A mountain of God is the mountain of Bashan. Like, it's a mountain of God. A mountain of many peaks, the mountain of Bashan. But why do you fume with envy, you mountains of many peaks? This is the mountain which God desires to dwell in. And so the idea was that Bashan, these greater mountains, were jealous of a smaller mountain, Mount Moriah, where God would eventually, where David would come and he'd take the ark to dwell up there at Moriah, where the temple would eventually be built. So anyway, here it is. David wrote this psalm about bringing the ark to Jerusalem. And we know that because, we know from Numbers. We can go back and we can put the pieces together. So just kind of a cool little connection showing how when you are familiar, the more familiar we all become with the word, the more we can make these connections. I'll close. Not really like, these aren't really exhortations, for daily living, but just understanding our Bibles and the word better. Again, making connections helps us understand. I've got it written down here. There's 404 verses in the book of Revelation. 278 of those 404 verses, that's like 2/3, are either direct quotes or strong allusions. Like, it's not word for word, but it's pretty clear what the connection is to the Old Testament. And many Christians today, we just don't understand the book of Revelation. Well, you'd probably understand it better if you had a strong understanding of the Old Testament. And so it's things like that where, again, keeping the Bible in context, making those connections, how important it is for us to be students of the entire Word of God. So keep studying, guys. Keep reading. Keep listening to sermons. That's one of the biggest ones. You know, for me, it was always just listening to lots of sermons, you know, filling in dead time by being taught the Word of God. And little by little, you'll absorb as much as you can. But if you're giving yourself as many opportunities to grow as you can, you will grow as fast as you can. And you're never going to grow faster, but you most definitely could grow slower or not grow at all if you don't take the time to be feeding yourself the Word of God. All right. God bless you guys. Have a great day. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning.